no, not one. None else can heal all our soul's diseases. No, not one. No, not one. Jesus knows all about our struggles. He will guide till the day is done. There's not a friend like the lowly Jesus. No, not one. No, not one. No friend like him is so high and holy. No, not one. No, not one. And yet no friend is so meek and lowly. No, not one. No, not one. Jesus knows all about our struggles. He will guide till the day is done. There's not a friend like the lowly Jesus. No, not one. No, not one. Anybody need to catch your breath? Let's go last. Good last verse. Was there a gift like a Savior given? No, not one. No, not one. Will he refuse us a home in heaven? No, not one. No, not one. Jesus knows all about our struggles. He will guide till the day is done. There's not a friend like the lowly Jesus. No, not one. No, not one. Okay, anybody else wants to come up here and sing it with the microphone? That's you know the song. Jonathan, Beth, y'all want to try it? Charlie, you want to do it? You didn't even look at the book. Did you know the song? Okay. All right. Somebody went more, huh? All right. Some Sunday morning, I may do it this Sunday. I don't know. I love to sing, but there's a lot of songs I can't lead that song because it's too high. Or if I go too low, like Becky said last week, yeah, you sing it so low, nobody else can sing it, yeah, because it's just a natural baritone or bass voice, so it's hard for me to sing lead, tenor, or whatever it is. So there's some Sunday morning at 11 o'clock service, I'm like, let's sing, okay? I got about 5 songs picked out, and y'all will sing with me. And because the scriptures, they did that. The Jews did that all the time. They would get together and sing for hours. Is anybody, when you were a child, your family would sit around and sing? No. Anybody, when you were a child, you'd go to church and they'd sing the whole time? No one ever did that? Okay, my family would sing all the time. Of course, they had, my sister could play piano, my brother played the acoustic guitar. They gave him, you've heard the story. They gave him a violin. They gave me a posthole digger because I could play that one pretty good. I still play that one pretty good. So, but we would sing. We'd sing. We'd drive to Florida and like sing a lot of times. We'd play, sing songs and silly songs or whatever. But we drive to Florida and sing. Whatever. So we drove to California and back a couple times. And the first time I was 3, like Josiah's age, and my older cousins in the vehicle, they called me Chief Brain in the Face because I guess they cried all the time because it was, you got everyone else is 10, 12 years old. Well, the oldest one's probably 12, 13 years old, and I was the youngest one at 3. And they went packed in the back of a pickup truck. Those campers on the back, back then you could travel like that. And probably 8 kids in the back and 3 or 4 adults in the front, the truck, and it's kind of always like that. And, this is really hot going across the desert, state of Arizona, different places, Yellowstone. All these places, I think how hot it was, and I can imagine. And I thought, as an adult, I said, no wonder the 3-year-old cried, and probably tormented by the 12-year-old, right? Okay. There wasn't any air conditioning back then. They had little crank out windows on the side, and that one little vent window up in the front that you cranked out, and there wasn't a whole lot of air flow through that thing. But it was fun, okay? But we sang a lot. Our family would sing, and you can't tell, but I enjoyed it. But I still enjoyed singing. So some Sunday morning I want to sing. And the Bible commands us to, okay? It's one thing the Bible commands you to do. You can sing. Everybody can do it, okay? Everybody got a prayer request. Really simple this week. Travis Jordan has back problems. And some of you know him, some of you don't. When him and Charlie were teenagers, when we started the church, his dad, Raymond, got saved. The dad got saved shortly after we started the church. Travis and Jason came, and Jamie, don't leave her out. But Travis is preaching down here at Crossroads with Ben, and he just had back problems. He's had COVID. He was supposed to have back surgery, and then he ended up with COVID and got sick. So someone just mentioned it to me today, and so There's a couple churches in that area that have had, one had 13, one had another number in the teens that had COVID within the church family. It's a, Jason, I didn't know that. I did not know that. Yeah, Travis, the whole family had. Okay, and it might be someone mentioned at their church that they'd had that go through the congregation. So pray for those that are sick. Friend of Travers, they went to when they moved to Canada, they started going to church in Ravenswood, Ripley for a couple of years, several years, I guess. And a good friend of hers passed away this past week from COVID, and she was 60, and her and her mother both had it. She was getting better. They'd both been in the hospital, and she was getting better, and she died, and then her mother died just a couple of days later. And so I can't remember what they came, and I went out there at the funeral. It was Saturday evening. The funeral was on Saturday. Trevor was telling us about it. So there's a lot of people. The county's in red again, so there's a lot of people just going to stay home as much as they can. So if you're sick, stay home. If you got symptoms, stay home. If you're afraid of getting sick, wear a mask. Stay home. Stay home. Wear a mask in your house. No, I wouldn't do that. Don't go extreme with that. But pray for those that have been sick. And a lot of people in our community that I didn't know about. The people come saying, yeah, they got sick. Hey, this person got sick. So just keep these people in prayers, okay? So they'll pass. Okay, anybody else? Pray for Patty. Pray for Tracy. As far as I know, she has not gotten a test back. So tomorrow will be 2 weeks since she had her test. Thursday will be 2 weeks since she had her test, and she hasn't got the results back yet. So keep her in your prayers, okay? Anybody else? Alan's still down. He's getting out a little bit more, but he hurt his back, falling off his rod mower, and how do you fall off a ride mower? Well, Brother John's about a 45-degree angle behind his house. He rides that thing on, and I always wondered how he did that, but he didn't make it this time. So, and he's not recovering quickly because he's like 70 years old, right? So okay. So pray for Alan. All right, anybody else with a prayer request? Spoken request? Anybody with an unspoken request? Okay, Charlie, would you do some prayer? All right, open your Bibles to Nehemiah, chapter 2. We'll look a little bit at chapter 2 and chapter 3, but we'll start in chapter 2. Book of Nehemiah. There's Psalms, then back up a couple of books. Got Job before that. Esther. It's Wednesday night. That microphone's on. Back there. So if you have questions, the microphones hopefully will pick up your questions. So those who are listening from home will hear if you have a question. Questions or comments. You're free to ask anything you need to ask. Okay? You got it, Nehemiah. We're going to go to chapter 2. Before we start, and we'll review the history just a few minutes. Okay? The Jews had disobeyed God in the land of Israel, the promised land. They disobeyed God, so God sent them into captivity, Babylonian captivity, and then the Persians took over from the Babylonians. And so Shushan, the palace, Shushan is the capital city, and the palace of Persia. And the king of Persia is Artaxerxes. In chapter 1, Nehemiah, who is the cupbearer for Artaxerxes, the king of Persia, in chapter 1, we read that someone, his cousins or somebody has come back from Jerusalem and given him a report as to what the city looks like. And the city's been completely destroyed. As far as I know, Nehemiah's never been there. They've been there 70 years. He's still a younger man. But he has never been there. But he always, his entire life, he's wanted to go back to Jerusalem, where his family was from, and wanted to live there. But someone came back to him and told him, he said, the walls are completely destroyed. The king of Persia, Artaxerxes, has sent Ezra over to build the temple, but there's no protection for our people. It'd be like today we have walls around our cities. We don't have walls around our country, but to protect from enemies, they had to have these walls up from people invading their land. In chapter 1, we learned about this. That Nehemiah heard about this, and him being the king's cupbearer, he had last week we talked about this. He had the opportunity to go to the king, to present his petition to the king to go back and build the walls around the city. And it was a secret word we talked about last week. Anybody remember? It's a secret word. Jonathan, you were here. Secret word. Attitude. Secret word. It applies in every area of life. I'm going to apply it right now just because it's one of the biggest words that I know of. Other than salvation, it's one of the biggest words that I know of that affects people's lives. Okay? I'm real busy at work all the time. I work as fast as I talk most time here. Okay? So I drive... I try to drive within the speed limits as close as I can with it to above the speed limit without getting a speeding ticket. You know, so I live that way all the time. So this past week, Tammy said someone needs to do the landscaping out in front of the business. Okay, out in front of the business. Our bosses go in the back door. Well, I go in the back door almost all the time. Through the warehouse door and in the building. We don't come in through the office door. All the ladies come in through the office doors, and a couple other people come in through the office doors. We very seldom have customers in, but the landscaping is probably as wide as this building, maybe a little wider, and it's probably maybe 10 feet by 40 feet, whatever it is. And no one had touched the landscaping in about 3 years. Tammy used to take care of it on her lunch hour, just her therapy, going to take a break from the computer, go outside and pull weeds. But for the last, I'd say at least 2 or 3 years, she hasn't done it. So the weeds are this tall. Okay, it was actually, Charlie, there were some trees that I could have pulled them up, brought them to you, just say, hey, what is this? Okay, there's a tree went up, bushed out, and had branches about like this. I don't know what it was, but it come up out of the ground real good because it's all in the mulch stuff. It's only about this deep, so it all come up pretty easy. So the stuff was up there everywhere, and I said, how come no one does that? Tammy said she doesn't have time to get to it now, and when she takes her lunch break, she takes about 20 minutes and or a half hour at the most, but she reads a little bit and has her time. Okay, so I thought, how come nobody else does it? Okay, so I did that today. Okay, I got done with my work, and I'm a salesman. I'm supposed to be out calling on people. Nobody wants to see you. Okay, you wear a mask, you walk in, you want to see me? No. And I get some doors, they got a glass door, and they're like, yeah, I know. They've got a cardboard box at the door. Put your information at the door and walk away. Right? So they say, okay, they know me. They can put my information at the door. And I said, how come no one's take care of the building? Okay. Now I walked out, and then I went out back. And there's a truck that I haven't driven in about 3 years, but everybody else in the company, all our drivers drive this truck. It's white, but it is, they call it old moldy because no one has washed the truck. I washed it probably about 4 years ago. Something was the last time I washed it. No one had since then, okay? You can see where the windshield wipers go across. There's no mold where the windshield wipers go across, and then the mold's all the way around the front and outside, okay? And on the inside. And no one has taken trash out of the inside. I didn't get to that part yet today. But I thought, I looked at it and said, I'm going to drive everything home tonight, okay? I said, well, actually, I was going to pull it in, and I was going to wash it at work. And Jason, the guy who works at the warehouse, he said, you can't use the hose. It leaks. It sprays out through the building. In the box is expensive stuff, so you can't get the envelopes wet. Yeah, okay, so I'll bring it home, okay? Brought it home with me tonight. Washed it down with bleach, try to get this stuff off. Why? To get brownie points with the boss? No, just because looking at it needs to be done, okay? So Nehemiah is one of these people who he hasn't been to Jerusalem yet, but he's heard about it. He's always wanted to go. He always wanted, it's the land of his fathers, the land of his heritage, the land's been promised to his family by God. He said, I need to go there. Okay? So one day he walks into the king and with his, as his cupbearer, the butler, the king says, "You're sad. How come you're sad? You've never been sad." He said, "I've never been sad in his presence." And the king said, "How come you're sad?" He said, "Why should I not be sad? Jerusalem's laid waste, and something's got to be done about it." And he said, "Someone needs to go and build the walls around the city and repair the gates, and so that the people have protection. And there's other people who come through all the time, take everything they have. My family." And the king said to him in chapter 2, he said, when Nehemiah said that to the king, because we'll look at chapter 2 just for a minute. Look at chapter 2, verse 3. We'll read a couple verses, but then we'll go into where we want to get to tonight. Verse chapter 2, verse 8. Then I said to the king, "Let the king live forever. Why should not my countenance be sad when the city, the place of my father's sepulchres, lies waste, and the gates thereof are consumed with fire?" Then the king said to me, "For what dost thou make thy request?" So I prayed to God of heaven, and I said to the king, it's a good combination, praying and ask God. Ask God and then tell the king what you want. And I said to the king, "If it please the king, if thy servant have found favor in thy sight, thou would send me unto Judah, to the city of my father's sepulchres, that I may build it. I will build the city back up. We'll build the walls around the city and replace the gates." And the king said unto me, the queen also sitting by him, this is pretty good for me. Look at me. If you've ever had someone in your lifetime that can afford to give you anything you want, say to you, whatever you want, I'll take care of you. Okay? And I've had that happen to me. And so, Johnny, all you got to do is ask. Okay? And I never ask. For the people that have said to me that have said, as a brother in Christ, all you have to do is ask. Just ask. It's okay. I'll let you know. But I couldn't ask. But it thrilled me to my soul saying that this person loved me enough sitting beside me on the couch saying, "Johnny, anything you want, okay? What do we need?" And he stopped by the house at other times and called me from Florida and say, "I noticed you need." Well, no, it's taken care of. Don't worry about it. Okay. It thrilled me that someone would look at me, look at my concern that much, look at me and see, I see a concern. What can I do? Okay. Nehemiah is standing before the king with a cup in his hand, the queen sitting beside him. And the king says, King Artaxerxes, I like this king. The king said unto me, verse 6, the queen also said, "For how long shall thy journey be, and wilt thou return?" So it pleased the king to send me, and I set him a time. Okay. So the king said, "How are you going to be? Someone needs to go build walls around the city. You're going. What's it going to cost?" Don't worry about the cost. Yeah, I'll write letters to the people that provide the timbers for the gates of the city. I'll write letters for you to get the timbers. I'll write, and Nehemiah asked for this. I'll write letters to the governors as soon as you leave the province of Shushan and go. As you travel, you'll have letters. You'll have an army escort going across, because several hundred miles. You'll have an army escort getting you over there, and letters to everybody when you get there is what I want you to do. And I want you to do this. And you've been commissioned by the king to do this. That's pretty good. Okay? So, we understand this part of the story, right? So that's where the attitude comes in, right? That is the biggest thing in the world, is attitude, your attitude at work. And I think, I seen this when I was scrubbing that box truck today. How come nobody else will watch it? They like calling it old moldy and won't watch the thing, okay? Okay. All that to say this, now we're going to read up a little bit. Okay, look at chapter 2, verse 10. Because he goes to Jerusalem, and when Sanballat the Horonite, Tobiah the servant, the Ammonite, heard of it, that he was there, it grieved him exceedingly that there was come a man to seek the welfare of the children of Israel. Stop right there. So when he gets there, as soon as he gets there, he understands there's enemies there in the city, the Ammonites, those descendants of Lot, and Horonites, I don't know who that is. But they're descendants, they're enemies all around the city and within the city that do not want him there, and they want him gone. And they will be his sworn enemies from the day he gets there. They're going to try a couple of things like, "We're on your side, we're going to help you," but they're not really going to help it. So he understands before he gets there that he has enemies as soon as he gets there. Okay? Now we'll go back up to verse 9. We'll read several verses together. Okay? "Then I came to the governors beyond the river and gave them the king's letters. Now the king had sent captains of the army and horsemen with me, so I've got all this protection, and the king sent this with me. Then Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the servant, the Ammonite, heard of it. They grieved them exceedingly that there was come a man to seek the welfare of the children of Israel." Slow down a little bit because people So I got a text from Jim somewhere saying, "Slow down, Brother John." Brother Johnny, he called it. Okay. So I came to Jerusalem and was there 3 days. And I rose in the night, and I and some few men with me, neither told I any man what my God had put in my heart to do at Jerusalem. Neither was there any beast with me, save the beast that I rode upon. So there's not a whole bunch of people marching around the city. And I went out by night by the gate of the valley, even before the dragon well, and to the dung port, and viewed the walls of Jerusalem, which were broken down, and the gates thereof were consumed with fire. And I went out of the gate of the fountain of the king's pool, but there was no place for the beast that was under me to pass. Then I went up in the night by the brook. I think it went this is like a couple nights. And I went up in the night by the brook and viewed the wall, and turned back and entered by the gate of the valley. So we turned. And the rulers knew not whither I went, or what I did. Neither had I as yet told it to the Jews, nor to the priests, nor to the nobles, nor to the rulers, nor to the rest that did the work. Okay, so he's gone. So Nehemiah gets to Jerusalem. Everybody knows he's the king. He's sent there by the king that is over everything. He rules over everything from Ethiopia to India. Or Xerxes is powerful king, at this time, most powerful king in the world. And everybody knows he is sent by the king. Okay, he has letters for the governors to gather stuff. But everybody knows that his entourage, when he showed up, that he is directed there by their king. Okay. So he rides around a couple of nights and he looks at the walls, he looks at the gates. The gates are all burned with fire. Everything's torn down exactly as his cousins or who it was that told him these things. And he's already burdened for the work, but he needs to assess the damage. And he calls all the leaders together, all the Jewish leaders. Okay, he doesn't want Sanballat and Tobiah and these other people showing up. So verse 17, he calls all the leaders together. We'll go through this real quick. Just a couple verses. Then said unto them, "You see the distress that we are in. Now Jerusalem lieth waste, and the gates thereof are burned with fire. Come, let us build up the wall of Jerusalem, that we be no more of reproach." Now I told them of the hand of my God which was good upon me, as also the king's words that he had spoken unto me. And they said, "Let us rise up and build." So they strengthened their hands for this good work. Stop reading right there. I like this. Nehemiah goes around the city, rides a little mule, horse, whatever his beast he's riding. He rides around the city a couple of days. He sees how bad it is. He's already tore up over the city by the news that he's been given. And finally, he hasn't told the governors of the land. He hasn't told the leaders that are probably Persians or different nationalities. He hasn't called these people in, but finally he calls all the Jewish leaders together. And he said, "Here's my burden. Here's the letter that the king gave me. And my burden is to build a wall around the city. Because our families need this protection of this wall built around our city." Okay? It's kind of funny. Politicians like some politicians like walls around our country. Some people just like walls around their own community and don't want anyone to have walls around it. They want their personal protection, but they don't want walls to protect the rest of the nation. So, but Nehemiah is saying, we need this. And when he gave his burden to everybody around him, they all agreed. Okay? Jennifer mentioned, Marlon mentioned homecoming coming up in a couple weeks, right? When we started this church 28 years ago, Preacher Dave had a burden. And on our first church meeting, our first Sunday that we met here, November 1st, 1992, our first meeting, Preacher just presented his burden. I have a burden to see lost people saved. I have a burden for people that are out of church that should be in church. People that have been burned in other churches throughout the valley. That, there was on a deacon's meeting, got thrown out or whatever, different things that happen to different churches. And it happens all the time. I talked to a really good guy yesterday, a customer of mine, that we sat on a bench and just talked for a half hour yesterday. And he brought it up about being in church when he used to go to church. So I brought it up and he talked about the politics that got into the church that he was in and how terrible it was. Just he hadn't been in church now in years. Okay, and Preacher Dave and I knew several people that either lost people that needed to be saved or people that were out in the community, and so Preacher presented that burden, and I'm all for it. Okay, when Nehemiah presented his burden to the people, everyone agreed. Said we're in. Okay, so They said, verse 18, middle verse, they said, let us rise up and build. So they strengthened their hands for this good work. And it was a good work they were supposed to do. They were the ones that would be doing the building of the wall. And it was their families that needed the wall. It was their families that needed that wall of protection. Okay? I think about this with church often. And we're not building the church. If the Lord does build the church, they labor in vain to build it. So if we're not building the church, okay, we're trying to get lost people saved. We're trying to restore families. We're trying to get people that were in fellowship with God, that got burned in church or whatever, that are out of church to get back in church. So it's not really the idea that we are trying to build a church. God's got to do the building. Chapter 3, we're not going to read this because I can't pronounce any of these names. Okay? You can't pronounce a couple of names, not very many of them. Chapter 3, it goes from about every 100 yards or so, from this gate to this stream to this pool of water to this thing to this thing. Almost the whole chapter is a list of how many people signed up and said, we're in. Okay? And all the people signed up and said, our house on this side, we'll build this wall. And we'll read later that they had enemies that wanted to fight against them. So they have a trowel in one hand and a sword in the other when they go to work every morning. Okay? Because their enemies wanted to kill them while they're out there building the wall. But everybody that was in that meeting said, let's build it. We're all for it. Okay? Okay. Agree. A lot of people agree. I love being in church. I love preaching and teaching. I love singing gospel songs. I love everything that has taken place in this building the last 28 years. In agreeing with Nehemiah, these people saw that it was up to them to do the work. In agreeing that you see a need, should also mean you recognize that it's your part to do whatever work you're supposed to do. Everybody, not just people in this room, but anybody listening to my voice from home, everybody has a job to do. And I can tell you how many people have come to us in this church in the last 20 years and say, well, I couldn't serve at such and such church. I don't mean people. People that are here now went to another church, wanted to serve in that church, and the church said, nobody would let us serve. We wanted to. We offered. We tried to serve, and they told us not to. And so, everybody here. We've said this since the foundation of the church. Everybody here has a job to do. Okay, maybe work in the nursery, but maybe just directing traffic, keep people safe when they pull out on Sunday morning. But it may be cleaning the church, maybe crafts. There are a couple people that do that. I love when we have Bible school and everything's decorated, right? And Marcia comes in. She hasn't been lately. But has done lately. But when Marcia comes in and changes all the flyers and does all this stuff, it's not here because Marcia hadn't done it, right? Yeah, all the wreaths are all used up here, and the wreaths is outside, and the flyers down here in the front. Okay, everybody has a job to do. Agreeing, sitting there saying, "Yeah, we need to do that," means, okay, find your job and do it. Okay, and everybody has a job to do. Okay, I love the idea that Dave Kasdorf does this work and puts it on the internet, right? I love when Jason hadn't been coming because of the COVID thing. When Jason can find anything within an instant and put it up on the screen from the internet thing, or PR haphazardly says something or mentions something from the pulpit. Sometimes he's done it before the service and Jason's looked it up, but he could just mention something and Jason's flipping it up there on the screen, right? And I can't do that. Okay, I can't find it on. I'd hand my phone off to the kids and say, "Here, find me something here," just so I could find something faster than I can. Okay. Just like Nehemiah could not appeal to the king without having a plan of action, these people shouldn't just say, "Yeah, we need to do that," without them being involved. Okay. A friend of mine, my former boss, David Lee, was a treasurer of the church he lived down in Hurricane. He was a treasurer of the church down there, and with him being the treasurer at that time, he was the one that sat in the office on Sunday afternoon and wrote down every check and kept records of who gave what. Okay, so that at the end of the year, when they get their little slip of paper back, Dave Castle's done that for us forever. That you get that little piece of paper back at the end of the year, so you write down when you're figuring your taxes that you gave. Oh, we gave $12 this year. Okay, but if you write a check or if you put it in an envelope, then he keeps track of it for you and does that. Well, my friend, he's my boss, David, did that at his church, and that was his job. He said it would bother him in business meetings when people vote on stuff that he knew they wouldn't give. They wanted to build something. They wanted to spend $70,000 doing something, but he knew that they weren't going to spend a dime. The couples that were most adamant about, we need to do this, okay, didn't give, okay. But there's been people that said, like, in the past, there's been people in our church that said, we need to, and I said, okay, let's go. Let's do this. Well, we need to, and I said, okay, if you're saying we need to, let's do it, okay? But if you're seeing a need, if you get the burden, if you understand what the burden is of the pastor or the church to reach lost families, to get the gospel to them, to restore homes, to bring kids in here that whose parents don't know Jesus, and the only time you use God as a curse word, God's name is a curse word. If you get it, then you'll say, okay, where's my job? Okay, what am I supposed to be doing? I'm in. Just show me where to serve. There's other people in our church that serve today, or have been until the last few months, that have served in our church for a long time, that have come and said, okay, you preach that, what am I supposed to do? Okay, we'll find a job. Okay? The people that, who's back here right now? Anna, Rebecca, Jamie, Jennifer, is that real adults back here? Okay. Michelle, okay? Every one of them, okay? So, okay, where am I supposed to serve? Okay? Well, John, I can't teach, okay? Or I'm like, so what the animals goes upstairs. I can't teach, Brother John, but okay, you can go out there. You know, some people have gone up and just play games. Bub, I don't think Bub ever taught a lesson. But Bub was great for the kids with the game time on Wednesday nights. We did it for years, right? Everybody has a job to do. Okay, saying verse 18, let us rise up and build. It says this, three statements. You tell me you agree with this or not. One is I see the need. Number two is I'll do my part. And this is the biggest thing for Nehemiah and for the people that he met with that built these walls. Number three is this, my family is dependent on me to do my job. Just like your family is dependent on you to go to work and bring a paycheck home, pay for the house, the car, and food on the table. In the church family, seeing the need, saying, my family, the five ladies we mentioned back there, your families, their families are depending on them to do their job, and everyone's got a job to do. Well, Brother John, I can't do that anymore. I don't go on visitation, or I can't do that anymore. And I know Jamie, Brian, right before he was deployed this last time, it was like a month before he left, he texted me and said, I want to go on visitation. I want to go soul winning. I want to go, like we hadn't done it yet because then he was gone for a while and I was back and now we're COVID and different things going on. And some people think, well, I can't do that, okay? Raymond Jordan got saved here and we taught on, preacher had a Thursday night, we had a soul winning class for about a month. And the first night that Raymond and I went on a visitation, Travis and Jason were about 14 years old, 15 years old, and twin boys. And they were coming, and Raymond had been saved for a couple months. And he said, he showed up on visit for the next week for visitation with me. He said, Brother John, he said, I'll go with you, but I can't talk to anybody. Okay, he's a preacher now, right? Everybody knows him, right? Everybody knows him. He talks to everybody, right? He's friendly with everybody, knows everybody, okay? And he said, I cannot talk. I can't go in somebody's house and talk to them like you do. Okay, Raymond, just go with me. Just go. We're going to knock on the door, okay? I knew where I wanted to go that night, but I didn't know who lived in the house. I knew Ted Middleton because I'd met him, okay? I hadn't met Vonda. So we went up, knocked on their door, and I don't know which one it was, Chris or Josh, whichever one of the twins have been there. They were only about 7 or 8 years old at the time. One of them opened the door. I saw one head stick around, and then the other head stick around. I said, perfect. I know who's going to do the talking tonight. The father with twin boys that were 14 is going to be doing the talking to the family. That he did. Yeah, that had twin boys that were 8 years old, whatever the age they were at the time. So God has a job for every one of us to do. Brother John, I can't witness to anybody. I can't do that. Last year, I don't know, I went on visitation. I think about these stories all the time. And there's three men from another church in our area, another Baptist church down the road, and they got to be in their 70s. Because I know one of them. I know what I'm preaching. I went to visit one of them when he was out of church 28 years ago when we first started church. His friend David, preacher David, was out of church, and we went to visit him. And he said he's got to be in his 70s now. I called him someone else. But these three men getting out of the car, me and Alan were out going up, making our visits, and so on. And these three men got out of the car, and they're in their 70s. They're hobbling, going to go knock on someone's door. Okay? It wasn't I'm too old to do that. These guys weren't. Okay? Their families, and I thought about this, those men, I want to say 70-year-old men, their families at their church are depending on them to go sober, to take the gospel out. And the families that are waiting for them are waiting for them to knock on the door. And we're trying to get old to do that. No, we're not. Those men are doing their part. Because when their pastor said, or someone in the church says, let's rise up and build, they said, we're in. Let's do it. And they've been going for years. I mean, for 20 years. They've been up, knocking on doors and handing out tracts. Okay? Well, John, what's my job? Come see me after church if you got personal questions about it. And everyone's got a job to do. And Rise Up and Build says, okay, show us. We'll do it. Okay? You find out what you're supposed to be doing and do it. Okay? For some people, their ministry is back in the classroom. For some people, their ministry is out there on a job site. For some there's people in that church. I'll name these people. I'm not going to name the people. I'll list them. And you might figure them out. There's people in our church that have never stood up and sung a solo or taught a class, but they have a tremendous testimony at work all the time, and they've had a tremendous testimony among their family all the time. And God has blessed their lives and blessed their kids because of their testimony of doing the right thing all the time, serving God in their capacity. You know, they get some of them sneak in here during the week and put checks in the offering plate because they can't come to church on Sunday morning because it's, you know, we're not supposed to have more than 10 people or whatever. So they sneak in here during the week and their testimony out there, their ministry is out there. Right? It's not, may not be in this building, they don't teach a class, and some of them you may not want them to sing a solo. Okay? Okay, questions? Comments? We say Rise Up and Build. Does that mean build? We've got a building. It's not Rise Up and Build a building. It's seeing a ministry. What is your job? Okay? Anything you do can be a ministry. Okay? You could be working on cars, working on someone else's houses. Okay? There's people in our church that do that. Like Miss Jo said, you know, we roofed her house. She said, remember Charlie? She said she had 10 angels on the roof. You know, they didn't fall in. Yeah. So if we had more guys up there not being paid, then someone would have called immigration. Questions, comments? Okay, let's pray. Thank you, Lord, for the opportunity you've given us to serve. I pray that you help us present the burden to our church family, that everyone's got a job to do, that everyone will say, yeah, that's my job. Help us be the soul winners, Lord. To witness to our family and our friends, to go out after those that should be in church, that are out of church. And I know we can't have a crowd now. We're not supposed to have a crowd. We're not supposed to have 10 people together outside right now because of the COVID thing. But help us to win our community to you. Use us, please, for your glory. Take the gospel out to people whose hearts are broken. To bake something, take something, to give to somebody who has a need. Use us, please, for your glory. In Jesus' name we ask. Amen. Thanks for coming out tonight.